So it's Curtis here, and we're now talking about the very challenging topic of what makes young girls, possibly young white girls, so vulnerable to sexual exploitation. Before I go any further, let me introduce myself. I'm Curtis from the Social Work Race podcast. I'm a social worker. I work in child protection, and I like to at times have uncomfortable discussions with service users, professionals, and anyone in between around social services and the issues within it. I get a lot of DMs on the topics. I get a lot of messages from parents requesting help, support, guidance. I get a levels of hate. We can deal with it because people don't understand how complex this is. But it requires for us to really support and shape society. Something that hasn't happened enough is a rigorous discussion and analysis for fear of offending people about how we make our world safer. Because in order to make our world safer, we have to point to particular characteristics or behaviors which some people will fall into, and they're going to get upset before they rationalize this, before they take accountability, before they have some level of introspection. They're going to get upset. I'm going to look at that topic today because this is part two off the back of what I just dealt with in the previous episode about the whole grooming gang thing. They focused on white girls, particularly the ones from fractured homes and care homes. Now, look, the fact is that children from care homes, especially, let's focus on girls. The girls from care homes, they're going to be so much more vulnerable. You'll understand why as we go through these numbers. So what I did was I just did a little bit of research and some of the top factors, and I found 3 major factors that make young girls vulnerable to sexual exploitation. I don't think that it's personally, I in the work is only because of the work I've done. I don't think this is a matter of white girls, black girls, but I think that in different communities we have different strengths and weaknesses. But then when they're in care, in particular, they're more vulnerable. But what makes young girls, the top factors that make young girls vulnerable to sexual exploitation: a chaotic or dysfunctional family environment. This is a tough one. Things like, and this information is not my personal perspective. I will add to it with my perspective. This is from sources. This is not me. So here we go. The chaotic or dysfunctional family environments: domestic abuse, neglect, parental substance misuse, yes, a lack of emotional support, problematic parenting or non-productive parenting styles, bereavement. All of these things make your girls more vulnerable to sexual exploitation. I don't need to go into it today. I don't have the time to, but that is a fact. A tough one, because it means now that we have to look at ourselves as parents. Some of you will hate me. Yeah, I'm a social worker, but listen to what I'm saying. You know, mental health issues, low confidence, and you can get a lot of that low confidence from social media. I'm trying to convince all these kids, get off of Snapchat, get off of Instagram. These things kill your confidence. Learning disabilities, groomers, pedophiles will even say it themselves. They prey on children who have mental health challenges, identity issues. There's a big one, no dads. I'm going to take it back up to family, the social isolation. When there's no dad, a groomer loves that. So I'm calling out to the dads. One of the reasons why your daughters are so easily groomed and sexually exploited is because you were not there. But that's a bigger topic. We'll get to that another day. Yep, social isolation. We're looking at homelessness, being in care. And if your children are hanging around other children who are displaying some high risk delinquent behavior, that makes them more vulnerable to sexual exploitation. Let's look a bit more at the family And let's look at the things within the family that make young girls more vulnerable to sexual exploitation. We're going to get a little bit more into the details of this, okay? So a dysfunctional family environment. So a chaotic home, yes, with domestic violence. We get a lot of that in social services. And I think that we need to take it a lot more seriously as social workers. Our numbers are low. We can't cope with the cases. And a lot of families get off with a warning, depending on how serious it is, but it is something that contributes to this sexual vulnerability, or the vulnerability for their sexual exploitation. Neglect, harsh discipline. These children are at higher risk of sexual exploitation when parents are just too hard. It's deep, isn't it? When parents take drugs, substance misuse, or if parents even have their own mental health issues, this will increase our daughter's vulnerability to sexual exploitation. Here's an interesting one. We're looking at the family structure as well. So living with non-biological parents, this is just the facts now, okay? I'm sure there's a lot of blended families out there. But if you live with a step parent, typically dads are the step parent, or single parent homes, or live-in partners. This raises the risk significantly. These are numbers and facts. This is not my opinion, but this has been known. This is nothing new. I've been hearing this forever. We've got to be careful about then our choices of partner, who we're sleeping with. We've got to be careful about who they are. Do we know who we're sleeping with? Not just being careful about who, but do we know their past? I've podcasted on this a number of times. Have you done background checks? Who's their family? How do they treat their mum? Did they grow up in care? What have they learned? Do they see their children? Why don't they see their children? Have you spoken to the baby mum? These are the big issues. And these are what I've just told you is probably some of the biggest factors for why sexual abuse persists, is because parents aren't doing due diligence. We've got poor parent and child attachment. This leaves girls open to be exploited by someone else, because then when the parent's not emotionally available for the child, they will seek it somewhere else, even if it hurts. Parents with unresolved trauma, who have suffered abuse themselves, if they haven't dealt with it, or if they are in therapy for it, it must translate into how they will make their homes a better place. Whatever you do, whether you go to therapy or not, whether you had the opportunity to stop in your life and say, I need help, make sure that whatever your decisions are, they translate into your best shot at making your home the best place it can be. We've also got the issue of culture and social attitudes. Culturally, I don't think it might appear more in some cultures, but the work that I've done as a social worker, every community is guilty of wanting to hide the abuse because they don't want to bring shame or attention to the family. They don't want to break the family up. And one of the big issues that I've come across, which is deeply frustrating, is when a mother is choosing the partner over the safety of the children because they don't want to be alone. That is a significant factor that I find. I think in conclusion, we have to understand that as parents, things don't work out all the time with partners. But as parents, we have to. I'm a parent. And everything I do, I'm always projecting into the future. How is this going to play out? How might this play out? My aim is not to make life comfortable for me. It's about making sure that the children have the best chance. What I've given you today is scratching the surface, but it's not opinion, it's fact. It's information that we've known for a long time, and it's still current, that there's so many girls. I worked in youth justice, and I would say 90% of the girls that were being exploited or were on the fringes of exploitation were from single parent homes, were from homes where there was a stepdad who didn't play too much of a role, or they were victims of abuse themselves. I mean, this summarizes, all this research I have done summarizes what I've seen with my own eyes, and I'm still seeing it. And I'm encouraging parents, if you choose to have children, then they come first.